Welcome to the Strong Enough podcast, where we talk about the challenges and celebrate the triumphs of people from all walks of life. I'm your host, Claudia. Today's guest is going to talk about how he had a complete health and fitness transformation at the age of 47. And he's going to share that when he had nowhere to turn and no resources to find, he created them himself. He's also going to share some tips and tricks for you into when you should look for a trainer and what you should look for in a trainer. Please help me welcome Allan Misner. Allan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Claudia. How are you?
I am well, and I am really excited to have you here today for a couple different reasons. One is that you deal with health and fitness pretty extensively, and so I always love speaking to people like you, and I think you have some great advice that you're going to share with the audience as well. So I'm really stoked that you're here today, so thank you.
I am too, and I love the name of your podcast, Strong Enough. I love that message right there. That's right up my alley.
Thank you so much. I mean, I'm biased, but I love it too. But thank you. And so I think we're going to have a lot of people in the audience that are going to be looking you up once they hear this episode. So to get them ready to hear a little bit more, I would love it if you would share a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I was always the type A, get it done my whole life. So, when it came to athletics in high school and on, I was in it. When I was in the military, I was on it. When I started my college, I was on it. When I got into my career, I was on it. The problem came in is the career part. And what I did was I did what everybody is supposed to do, right? Move up the corporate ladder, do the rat race thing. And so I would work the 80, 90 hours. I would travel all over. I'd live wherever to make the money to get the promotion to be the thing. And so I found myself as a C-suite executive at the age of 39. So I was a vice president at a Fortune 500 company. That's what that's the top. That's what you're supposed to do. The problem was that every other aspect of my life, my health, my fitness, my relationships with others, my relationship with myself, all of that was just crud. And I was miserable. At the point in my life where I should have been the happiest, I was actually not. And I even called myself the fat bastard because there was nothing redeeming about me or my relationships or my health or fit, any of it. It was just crap. And so I wanted to change. I decided to change. And then I spent 8 years trying and failing, trying and failing, trying and failing. Until one morning, I woke up, I had a phone conversation with my daughter. She had just become a CrossFit level 1 coach. She was doing all this CrossFit and these little obstacle course races and things like that. And she was so excited about it. And it just reminded me of who I was, which was, kind of a kick in the stomach because I wasn't who I was anymore. I wasn't that person anymore. And then she said these words. She said, "Daddy, I want you to come watch me do this CrossFit competition." And that's that moment I said, wait a minute. I'm supposed to be a participant in my daughter's life, not a spectator. That's not what I signed up for when I wanted to be a father. And I'm like, of course I did go watch her. It's not I did go watch her, but I didn't want to. I said I should be there. I should be doing it. And so it was that point that I asked myself a simple question. Why was it that I was able to do all of these other hard things? The military and the sports and the passing a CPA exam the first time and just all these other hard things that I had done. And I'm like, why is this different? And then the answer came to me. I had never really committed to fixing myself. And I needed to do that if I wanted to change. And that flipped a switch in my head. that there was no fail, that this was not bigger than me, that I could do this. And we're going to talk a little bit about mindset in a minute, but I worked through some of my mindset problems. And one of the things that I have in me is what I call an atlas type. Now, an atlas is the paper atlas we used to have before GPS existed. And I had that in me. And I knew that if I made something harder, I would work harder. If I put something scary in front of myself, I would do scary. And so I did. I called my daughter up and I said, hey, let's sign up for a Tough Mudder. Now, a Tough Mudder is a 12 to 13 mile mud run. Now, a mud run is different than a normal run because it's not on the road, it's not even on a trail. It's back where you get trucks stuck and you get four-wheelers stuck, and it's just a rough terrain to move through. And with these obstacle course races, they also throw in like 25 obstacles just to make it even more fun. And this was the first obstacle course, civilian obstacle course that I knew of, that someone had actually died doing it. Okay, so this was stupid, but I knew it was going to fire me up. Okay, and I knew it would excite my daughter, and I knew that doing it would change everything for us. So we signed up for it. This was in March. The race was in November. And I said, okay, obviously now I've got this big scary thing. I don't want my daughter to have to wait on me, and I don't want her to have to feel like she could just needs to leave me back.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to finish the thing, and I want to finish it on her time, and I want to finish it without feeling wrecked. So I knew I had to change my fitness, my health. I needed to lose a bunch of weight, needed to get a lot stronger, needed a lot more stamina. And so that's what I did for 8 months. And I lost 66 pounds of fat. I gained 11 pounds of muscle. And I did that in my mid 40s when most people aren't supposed to be able to do those things. And so I completely changed physically. I changed other things during that period of time, but I changed physically. And when we did the race well. We finished the race holding hands. She ran her race, I ran my race. And when if you've had a kid, you're gonna know this. But there are 3 times memories I have with my daughter that are like the most cherished things I have on this earth. The first one was the day she was born, when she wrapped her hand around my pinky. Okay, the next was walking her down the aisle about a year and a half ago. And I am convinced today that had I not made that commitment back when I was in my mid 40s to do what I did, I probably wouldn't have been alive to do that. My health and fitness was that poor. And then the third was, yes, finishing that race, holding her hand, having, changed myself, changed my relationship with her, and being there with her as a participant and not a spectator.
So much to dive into. I want to start with mindset because you mentioned that, there was that period of 8 or 9 years where you tried and failed, and you realized that you hadn't convinced yourself that this was meaningful and that you needed to do it. What gave you that mindset shift and the ability to finally say enough is enough?
Yeah, well, the core of it was yes. There's certain aspects of me that are driven and others that are not, and so it's easy for me to look back at it. What I've done is I've trained thousands of people since. Okay, didn't set out to be a personal trainer. I was a corporate executive, but that's what I do now, and I've trained lots and lots of people. And there are about 5 mindsets that I see out there all the time. And I realized as I look back at what I did, I basically went through each almost all five, but I went through three primary ones. That the first primary one I had to beat before I could get to the second one, before I could get to the third one. So the first one was that I was, well, maybe four. I'll start. I think there were probably four, but one was I was always putting other people's priorities over my own. Now, a lot of mothers will do this. Okay, I got to take care of the kids. I got to take care of the husband. I got to take care of the house, and I have my job, and I have this. End of the day, no energy to take care of yourself. I call that a co-pilot. And so a co-pilot is putting everybody else's needs in front of their own. And that will never work for the long term. Eventually that will beat you. And so with my job, traveling all the time, 90% travel, I always just put the job first.
Mhm.
You know, and I had done that, and that's why I got where I was. So there was a point where I needed to put myself first. Okay. Put my needs first. And so to one of the superpowers of a usually of someone who is a co-pilot is that they already have a support system around them. Their significant other, their kids, all those others that are around them that they spend this time serving, those folks will help them too if they just raise their hand and ask. So that's usually the superpower for a co-pilot. Okay, so after I got through co-pilot, the next thing that I had as a problem was that I was looking in my rearview mirror instead of looking out the windshield. I was remembering myself in my mid 20s. And so I would try a workout program that was designed for someone in their mid 20s, and it would break me. I would try eating the way I ate before or try something different, and it wouldn't work. And so I was constantly looking at this past standard without looking forward. And what you have to do as a windshield person, when you know that's who you are, is you have to realize where your butt is in the driver's seat. You are in this spot now. And if you don't keep facing forward, you go backwards. So a windshield person just needs to look out the windshield and you'll go forward. It's just a natural way that it works for them. And so once I got past that, then I started feeling a sense that if I did something for a while and I got bored with it and I like missed a day or two, like Friday you go out drinking with your friends,
Mhm.
and then well I screwed up last night. I may as well just roll it on into Saturday, and I'll get started again on Monday for sure. And then I don't, so it's a week, and now it's a month, now it's months, and I'm right back where I started. So a tires person is someone who needs consistency in their life. So the apps we have now, the games and things like game,
Mhm.
like filling your rings in, things like that.
Mhm.
Like I have clients that I see that are tires, and I tell them, okay, get a paper calendar, and every day we're going to mark your paper calendar so you can see it, physically see what you're doing. And that's going to drive you to want to do the next time. So I had one client, and what she was trying to do is she realized that alcohol was a problem for her weight loss. So she didn't feel like she was an alcoholic, but she had a habit of, opening up wine and having wine each night. And that just, she knew that was what was holding her back. So it's like, okay, every day that you don't have a glass of wine, I want you to write a green W on your calendar. And that started driving her to want multiple
Mhm.
green W's on her calendar, and she kept going. I had another client who knew she needed to walk more, so she set a goal for her walking. Initially, it was very low, and then it went up. But uh, we were having a lot of conversations with her also about self love because me, if I'm going to call myself the fat bastard, there was a self love problem there.
Right.
Um, okay, so for her, when she got her calendar, she also bought these heart stickers.
Mhm.
So she was putting heart stickers every day she did that walk was an act of self love. She put a heart sticker on her calendar. That's a tires. That's a superpower. When you realize that's who you are and you start using that as a means to drive
Mhm.
yourself forward, you keep traction and you get things done. And so I got that. I was like, okay, I got to get some traction, get some traction. I was going, well, okay, now I'm on it. Okay. And then that's when that final bit came on, is where I call an atlas. Now, this is the paper atlas. When I was young, we would take a trip. Parents would get the paper atlas out and they'd take a red felt pen and they would mark the course that we're going to take. And this way, they didn't have to answer the question, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" The atlas was right there. Here's the atlas. You can see right where we are, and yeah, we're not even halfway. So shut up. Um, but so I needed a path. I needed something in front of me. I still do. And so right today, my primary mindset is an atlas. I need to be driving towards something because if I'm not, I'm just aimless and I'm bored. Why am I
Mhm.
doing this? What is this for? So I need to have a purpose, and I have several now, and we could talk about those later if you'd like. But I have several. So the first one was the Tough Mudder. That
Mhm.
was a destination. That was a thing, and it made me push really, really hard. I couldn't do that all the time, but for that period of my life, I was committed and I pushed and I got it done. Um, the only other one that I know out there is the fifth one is called I call it the pedals. And so a pedals person will see this really cool new diet. It's the chicken broth diet. And so they start the chicken broth diet and they do it for about 3 weeks and then they're not really seeing a significant change. So they put on the brake. And oh, well, here's this new workout thing, and here's this app, and so they just this shiny this, shiny that. They don't stick to any one thing long enough to find out what would actually work for them. So they just try something and then they put on the brake. And they try something else and put on the brake. Well, if you got in your car and tried to start driving forward anywhere and you just kept putting on the brake, you're just not going to go anywhere.
Mhm.
Okay. So we've got to stop pushing on the brake. We've got to find something that's reasonable that we can, in our logical brain, say, okay, if I do this, this should really work. There's evidence support that it does work. And then you do the thing and you keep doing it and you fight that resistance that makes you want to push that brake. You got to keep going, keep doing the thing. The results will come. And so that's where their superpower comes in is that moment they decide, I'm not going to push the brake. And they bridge that gap, whatever gap that was, and then they start really seeing the results because they're consistent and they're continuing to go. So
Mhm.
those are the five primary mindsets. And as I talk through that, you probably sensed a few of those that you're like, yeah, that's me. Oh, wait, that's me too. Oh,
Mhm.
okay. And for a lot of people, yeah, that's the case. Is we have bits of all of this now. Um, one thing that was important was I needed to tackle them in the right order. Like when I first started going, if I had chosen Atlas and started focusing on something big and scary,
Mhm.
um, I would have broke myself because I was still a windshield person. And I was looking in the rearview mirror at who I was when I was 28, but I couldn't train like someone like that. I had to change the way I started my training and then the progressions of how I got better and better and better. And so it's important that you somewhat approach these in the right order. And so I have a quiz. If you go to 40plusfitness.com/quiz, that's 40plusfitness.com/quiz. It takes about a minute. It's absolutely free. And it will tell you what your primary mindset is. And so when you get that, then you kind of have a key for the first one you need to flip. And when you do, that becomes somewhat of a superpower that begins your journey. And then once you're on your journey, if you any point in time you feel like, okay, I'm starting to fade, or that's feeling this way, I'm not as geared up and ready to go, you could take the quiz again and you might find another one that's popped up and you need to tackle that one. Like I said, I can look back at my journey and see
Mhm.
four distinct periods of time in the way I was approaching my health and fitness that I had to get past to get where I am.
Once you figured that out and you were able to find success for yourself, what inspired you to want to kind of shift gears in your whole life and help other people now reach their fitness goals and their health goals?
Well, one of the key things was the time where we were. I mean, again, this is back in the 2010s, and so it was like 2012, 2013, and I had learned enough in those 8 years of trying to fix myself that something was just not right. I needed to do this differently. And so I started looking around for resources. I'm like, let's find a book for training over the age of 40. And the only books I could find were chair yoga and stretching. I'm not kidding you. And so I'm like, well, that's not going to change my life. That's not going to do what I need to do. Um, and so I was like, okay, that's no good. I listened to podcasts, but there were no podcasts talking about health and fitness over the age of 40. It was all the CrossFit people or the biohacker people, or, none of it was for me,
Mhm.
for a normal person that wants to get themselves back in shape. There were a lot of weight loss ones, but they were just all general. There were a lot of fitness ones, but they were all just general. And I'm like, I want something where someone who knows how to deal with me can
Mhm.
fix me. That didn't exist. So there were no resources. I was traveling around 90% of the time at that point in my job. And so if you do the math, what you realize is that's one weekend a month. And so structurally, physically, there was no way I could like hire a personal trainer
Mhm.
because there was no meeting them in the gym. Okay. So I said, well, the only other option available to me is to become my own trainer. So I went out and got certified with the National Academy of Sports Medicine. And I realized while I was doing that study, that I needed corrective exercise and I needed fitness nutrition. And so I just started working on the certifications and these specialties to become a coach for myself. And so I was my coach. Um, I would not recommend that someone go get certified just to fix your own health. There's a lot more availability of trainers and online
Mhm.
trainers and podcasts today than there were 9 years ago. But that was a big part of it. I was like, I made this drastic change. Obviously, I had friends that I would see occasionally. So one of my friends that I had seen back in March sees this picture of me in November. And if you go out to my website, we'll give the link later. But if you go out there and click on the About Me, you'll see the change. You'll see what I did. And so he was like, dude, I want what you just did. I want that. How do I do that? And I told him, I said, well, I got certified and so I can coach you. And I told him, I said, but really the easiest way would be if both you and your wife came on. And he's like, okay. And I was starting a podcast and I said, okay, and I'm going to record our sessions and use that on the podcast. So if you go back and listen to the beginning, that was one of the episodes I would have each week was a client episode. So I
Mhm.
started with one client and it was a self-love issue for her. She was successful, but then she pulled away. And but that was for her. That was a very much a self-love and just fear-based decision to pull away. So I brought on John and his wife Tammy. John in 10 weeks lost 39 pounds. Tammy lost 28. Um, so and the thing with Tammy was Tammy threw her back out. So she couldn't even exercise during that period of time. This was all nutrition based weight loss for her, most of it anyway. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing, and I'm good at it. So I launched online. And so I started coaching people online. I took on clients and started working with them. And my goal at the time had been I'll work about 5 more years. I'll do this on the side and I'll run the podcast. And then this will be like career number two. I'll
Mhm.
finish up with this and I'll retire and then I'll go do this thing. But my employer decided to lay me off in about year two of this 5 year plan. And I knew if I tried to get another job, then my 3 years left would end up being 5 years left. It's just
Mhm.
how compensation when you're at that level, you don't go back at the same compensation level, and you don't vest in your shares until you've been around 3 years or so.
Mhm.
So I was like, if I start over, I gotta start over. And I was like, I really don't want to do that. And so I told my wife, I'm like, I'm gonna figure this out. One way or the other, we're gonna figure this out. And so yeah, I just went full time in December of 2017. I was laid off and I went full time into this. I spent the first year writing a book. And so I have a book called The Wellness Roadmap, and that pretty much outlines how I viewed my change,
Mm-hmm.
and it lays out a blueprint, a roadmap, if you will, to help you do the same thing. Um, it was a really good book. I'm really proud of it. It won some awards and got nominated for others. And so then I've been coaching, and then after about a year of coaching there, and so we're getting close to 2019. My wife and I decided that we were going to kind of simplify our lives and lower our cost base, and so we moved to Panama. And so now I live on an island off the coast of Panama. It's a Caribbean island that does not get hurricanes. The temperature never drops below 70 degrees and never goes over 90. And we don't do the time change thing. So a lot of good things to say about Panama. A lot of bad things too, but I love it. I love it here, and so it's kind of a different way of life. And now I coach full time, and we bought a bed and breakfast down here, so we run a 6-bedroom bed and breakfast called Lula's. That's primarily my wife's baby. When she's away, I'll take over and help and get some things done. And I'm the bellman and the accountant and the back office person, but she does most of the heavy lifting.
I want to take a moment, and first off, I do want to say thank you so much for your service you mentioned earlier. So and I'm sure others appreciate that. You also mentioned when you started looking for help and support that there wasn't any out there. And now that now there's more places you can go. And a lot of that's thanks to you. You wrote the book, you started training people, you now do it online so that more people have access, and you have a podcast with several hundred episodes so that now people do have a place to go. What does that feel like for you to know, that you took something, a personal problem, and said, I'm not just going to help myself, I'm going to create things that are now going to help so many more people so that they don't run into the same things that I ran into when I wanted to get better and change my life?
Well, it feels good. I mean, when I first started it, I don't know that I had these grandiose ideas, but it was just I can do this, and for lack of a better word, it was a hobby and a passion project hobby that I had no real intentions other than, again, when I retire and I don't really need any money, then I'll do this, and then and do it. But it really, sometimes it's like there's just stories of people that I've trained that I know the value for an individual. It's hard for me to think of it in terms of, yeah, there are thousands of people that have heard my podcast and thousands of people who have either read my book or listened to audiobook. Um, that feels good. But when I break it down to single stories, of a woman who at age of 50 in menopause basically did not believe she could lose weight. She's like, I don't think women over the age of 50 can lose weight. And I told her, I said, well, look, I said, I have a guarantee with my program. If I can't help you lose weight, I'll give you your money back. So you have nothing to lose. And so she gave it a shot. We went through my standard 12-week program, and I think she lost something like 15, 16 pounds. So she did the impossible. She did the work. She did the work. Okay. I helped coach her, but she did the work. And then she signed on for another 6 months because her goal was to lose a total of 41 pounds, which she did. Okay. And, 41 pounds is, for someone like her, a whole lot of weight.
Mhm.
But it's not the weight, it's the improved health, it's how she feels about herself and her capacity to thrive. And so this was not about teaching someone that they were wrong. or even helping someone lose weight. This was helping someone do something that they just did not believe in themselves. And that's probably, for me anyway, the biggest coaching success I can have is giving someone the ability to surprise even themselves.
I think she's not unusual. I think there's a lot of people out there that do believe that, that in your 40s, 50s and beyond, like it's hopeless. There's
Yeah.
nothing I can do. I'm never going to be fit again. I can't lose the weight. Why do you think we have that misinformation or that misconception?
Well, it's not completely false. That's one of the problems in the health and fitness field is there are myths, but you can't really call them myths because there's so much anecdotal evidence that they're true. It is harder to lose weight when you're in your 40s and 50s and then 60s. It's harder. It's not impossible, and I think that's where we break the line. This is hard, but it's not impossible. And we tell ourselves it's impossible because we tried it and it was too hard. And so there's that line. And it's the individual that does what's necessary to have the accountability and the self-efficacy to drive them to keep doing it even when it's hard. I know a lot of people will sit there and say, well, I tried, and I'm like, okay, well, why are you doing this? And if you're just doing it for the 51 or 41 or 21 or 15 pounds you want to lose, that's not emotionally compelling.
Mhm.
But if you're doing it to be the grandmother you want to be, if you're doing it because you want to live a long, independent life, then it has an entirely different meaning to you. Like I said, I did not want to be a spectator, I wanted to be a
Mhm.
participant. And so when you add that meaning behind it, that deep emotional why, and then you kind of have a clear vision of what this looks like for you, you put those two things together, and what you have is commitment. Okay, when someone meets someone, they decide they want to get married. It's a very emotional day. Okay, we're going to do this
Mhm.
thing, and this is a lifelong thing, and we have these dreams of what our life together is going to be like. And so those dreams come together, and the why is this love. It's a self-love and a love of this individual, and it's the family we're going to build and the life we're going to build. And so you go at it with this much deeper meaning, and you do the things. It means, okay, well, I'm not going out and drinking beers with my buddies every night of the week. And it means I'm not hoo-hooing at this girl to get her attention or get her phone number. That's not what a committed person does. And so if you can approach health and fitness from that same level of commitment, well, you don't cheat on your diet. You don't run around and do things that aren't serving that goal. Okay. And so if you set yourself up that way, you understand that this is a way of life, and you need to create that way of life that's different than the way of life that got you where you were. So it's not a diet, it's not a program, it's rebuilding your lifestyle to live a different way and have a different thing.
At what point do you feel like people should think about a trainer? Is there a particular number of pounds, a particular goal, a certain person? When should somebody say, okay, like I think I need more than just me doing this. I'm going to seek some assistance.
Okay, there's three times. Okay, the first one is when you just have no idea whatsoever what you're doing. So if you walk into a gym and feel all of this anxiety and you're like, you have no idea how all this stuff works, it's probably worth having a trainer to provide some guidance. Okay, so you don't hurt yourself.
Mhm.
Okay, or you don't find yourself stuck. So what'll happen is, if you walk into a gym tomorrow, you'll see this. All the ellipticals and treadmills are at the front
Mhm.
because they know 90% of the people will stop there. Then you have the machines. So another bit goes there. And then in the back, you have the free weights.
Mm-hmm.
Almost every gym is set up this way because that's a traffic flow thing that works well for a gym. So most people are going to stop at the treadmills and they're going to just basically do that
Mm-hmm.
and not see results. Some people will make it as far as the machines. They'll see some results. They're easier. There's a diagram. So it's a little easier. And then there's the free weights where you could really make exceptional changes in your fitness, in your strength, your power, in everything. And most people won't go back there because they just don't feel comfortable. And they see the guys who did make it back there, and
Mm-hmm.
they're muscular and they're fit and they're doing their thing. And so it's just a little intimidating to someone who doesn't know what they're doing. So it's worth hiring a coach or trainer if you need that kind of guidance. Okay. A trainer can also give you support, meaning, okay, when it's hard
Mm-hmm.
and you don't want to push, a trainer can be there to push you a little bit harder. To say, look, I get it. This is hard, okay? And you're going to hurt tomorrow. And it's called DOMS. And I want you to drink some water and I want you to do this. And yes, you are going to come back in 2 days and do this again. And no, hurting is not a reason to not show up, okay? So this is what you can expect. And so they support you. They keep you kind of engaged and know what's going on, and helping you manage through that. And then the final one, and this is probably the most important, is that a trainer or coach can provide accountability. So there are two types of motivation, or two places motivation come from. So most people think motivation is just this magic force, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Fairy dust that's just going to show up on a Monday morning and be with me for the rest of my life. Sometimes it's there on Monday, but 3 weeks later, where did it go? Where did the motivation go? Well, motivation isn't a magical force. It doesn't just show up. It is something you get by doing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there's two types, there's accountability and there's self efficacy. So on the accountability, there's two levels. One is I call leader coach, and the other is group peer. Okay. So if you hire a coach, the coach is going to provide you accountability at the coach leader level.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to, you got workouts, you got things you're supposed to do. They're going to say, hey, did you do the thing? You got to do the thing. They're going to hold you accountable. The group peer thing is, and a lot of people think of peer pressure in a negative connotation.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the wrong peers. Okay, yes, if your peers are going to go out drinking and smoking and doing all the bad things that peers do when you're younger, well, if you have bad peers, then yes, they're going to lead you down the right. But if you have the right peers, so maybe there's a spin class or a Zumba class or aqua aerobics class or a running group, or a hiking group or a climbing group. If you're hanging out with those kind of people, you're more likely to do the thing. Okay. If Tuesday night's run club, you go
Mm-hmm.
do run club. Okay. And so that's the accountability piece. And so I do think a trainer is a big part of it. It's easy. You have to hire the coach. You could do that today. You could hire a coach today and have instant accountability, which is motivation. Okay. You can join a group, but you have to do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
That just doesn't happen. Okay. Accountability has to be asked for, has to be bought or part of. Okay. The other side, self efficacy, is harder, but it's more valuable. It's longer lasting. Okay. So the top level of that is also leader, but I call it self management. So self management is when you look at yourself as the CEO of your own body. And what business leaders do is they set up systems and processes to make sure the business runs the way it's supposed to. Okay, in the health and fitness field, we would call those strategies and tactics. So if you're having difficulty getting to the gym, you have to make it easier to get to the
Mm-hmm.
gym. So don't join a gym that's 20 minutes away. Join a gym that's 3 minutes away. Um, I was having a problem with my gym bag. Okay, for some reason, when I'd pack it in the morning, I would forget something like a t-shirt or shorts or socks. And then one day I only had one shoe in my I don't even know how that happened. But there was obviously some mental break and something
Mm-hmm.
wrong in me that was saying, "Okay, I'm not packing this bag right because if bag's not packed, I have a built-in excuse to not do the workout."
Mm-hmm.
So what I did, I laminated a list of everything that was supposed to be in that bag, And as I was brushing my teeth each night, there's the list, and I'd go from top to bottom and make sure everything on that list was in that bag. And then I would leave the bag right by the door to my carport that I'd literally have to step over it to leave in the morning. So I know I have my bag. I know my bag's fully packed. I eliminated that excuse. So that's a strategy and tactic set that basically worked to make sure I didn't have that excuse anymore. And I started being more consistent in my workouts. Remember, I told you at one point I was a tires person.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I have to have this. I have to be consistent. Once I'm consistent, I'm doing. I got past my tires because now my bag was packed every day the right way. Okay. So that strategies and tactics piece that comes in as a self-managed person, you start doing things. You realize it's hard to get up at 5:30 in the morning to go do the workout if I don't go to bed before 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to make sure I'm ready to go to bed before 10 o'clock. And that's self-management. It gets harder, but once you make the habits, you start doing it, it gets easier and easier. Okay, then the final bit is the social bit, similarly like group peer. But on this level, this is where things get really, really interesting because this is where your values and your habits start to align with where you're going. So you say, well, okay, I want to be fresh to run on a Saturday morning. So I'm not having drinks on a Friday night
Mm-hmm.
because that doesn't align with my values of doing what I'm going to do. And so you begin to identify as the person. And so an easy way to say that would be you imagine, okay, someone starts, they start walking and they were walking consistently and then they throw in a couple little jogs. I'm gonna run to the fence post, I'm gonna do this. And so now they're jogging, walking, jogging, walking. And they and a friend decide to sign up for a 5K and they enjoy it. They sign up for another 5K, they're buying the shoes and the stuff, you know, and now they think of themselves as a runner. Well, what do runners do? They run. So when the alarm goes off, they get up and they do
Mm-hmm.
their run. It's not, they don't even think about it anymore because it's just an automatic thing. They show up for they do their runs in the morning. They show up for run club because they still have that accountability group. They may even still have a run coach and they go do the thing, but they identify as a runner. And then, so the person who is most motivated is the one who usually has more feet in all four quadrants of this thing. So if you have a coach and a group and you have self-management and you identify as something, you're motivated. People, how do you keep well, I keep doing it because I'm in all these boxes, okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works. If you wonder why someone keeps doing the thing, is they're in all four of those boxes most of the time. And so, a coach can be the very first step to filling up your motivation map. And it's easiest because you just hire a coach. And then, yes, then I would say start looking for groups and people, peers that are going to hold you accountable and be a part of your new family. Jim Rohn says you're the sum of the five people you spend the most time with.
Mm-hmm.
Pick those people carefully. Okay. And then that's the easy ones. You still have to do something to get it, but those are the easy ones. Then you start working on self management and your habits and values. And when you get there, it's magic. Motivation belongs to you. Anytime you want, you can conjure it up. It's not a magic force, it comes from doing.
How do we pick the right coach for us, as individuals? What should we look for? What should stand out to us? What are some red flags?
Okay. One of the core things is longevity. So has this coach been doing this for a while? And do they work with people like me? So
Mhm.
if you walk into a gym, a big box gym, the coaches that are in there, they could be great people with all the certifications. But if they're working with teenagers all the way up, then you just have to ask them some questions because they may think we're all the same.
Mhm.
Or they may think you just need to do chair yoga and stretching. Okay. And so you want to make sure that you find someone who has experience doing what you want to do. I would not hire a swim coach if I want to run faster.
Mhm.
Okay. And if you want to lose some weight, I would talk to some coaches that do weight loss, and how they're going to coach you. The second bit would be you're going to spend time with this person. So you kind of got to like them a little bit. If they're
Mhm.
not someone you enjoy being around, then they're going to be hard to work with. You may think, well, yeah, I want a drill sergeant style trainer, and if that works for you, then by all means, them yelling at you when you're trying to do a bench press, if that fires you up and gets you pushing more weight, then yeah, hire that kind of guy. But just know you're hiring someone that coaches to your style, okay? Because we
Mhm.
all have slightly different styles. Um, and then this is probably maybe the biggest one is if you hire a coach and they turn around to a file cabinet and pull a workout out of that filing cabinet and walk you into the gym to do your workout, um, that's a problem. Okay. Especially when you're over 40, because you're going to have things in your history that they should know about.
Mhm.
If you feel like you have bad knees and bad ankles and bad back and bad this, um, they may need to adapt the workout to help you get past that. And if they ask you to do something, you should feel confident and comfortable asking about it. Now, don't plant your feet and say, I'm not going to do that because, squatting hurts my knees. I can't tell you how many people I've coached that said squatting hurt their knees. And then I got them squatting properly. And they're like, well, that doesn't hurt at all. I don't understand. Why did squatting hurt? You were doing it wrong.
Mhm.
Okay. We had very good intuitive movement when we were babies. And then somewhere along the lines, we sat too much, we did too much repetitive stuff, we had injuries, and we made mental excuses to not work out. And so finding a coach that understands that can coach you to get you the best results, they're only going to get there by asking questions.
Mhm.
If they think they know it all before they even talk to you, run. They're going to hurt you. Um, and then, yeah, trying just, so like I said, the core of it is you got to like them. They have to have some experience doing what you want from them.
Mhm.
And then, two, they need to be able to coach you on both sides, meaning they want you to ask questions, they want to educate you. When I bring on a client, my goal is to coach myself out of a job.
Mhm.
I want at some point for you to know your body well enough that this works, this is how I lose weight. Okay. And then if you like me and you like the accountability, stick around. But I want you to learn something.
Mhm.
And so I always ask when I'm talking to someone, are you coachable? And by coachable, that doesn't mean you don't ask questions. If I say, okay, I want you to start doing these squats, you're like, okay, I'd like to understand because my last trainer told me to stay away from squats, and my doctor told me to never do squats. And I'm like, okay, well, your doctor was wrong and your trainer was wrong. Let's talk about how you do squats because you're doing one every single day. I promise
Mhm.
you. You're already
Yeah.
doing them. It's called going to the bathroom. If you're a woman,
Right.
you're doing it a lot of times a day. Okay. You squat all the
Mhm.
time and you never think about it. But here's the thing. When you do that, you change your body and you move in a different way and you think about it a different way. But you can do squats. If you sit down, you can do and you get back up, you're doing a squat. So we just want to talk about that form and how you can move
Mhm.
differently and move better. And we may need to improve some strength in other parts of your body, but it's easy enough for me to do some basic assessments and see your movement pattern and be able to advise you how to do it right and not hurt. But then sometimes, yeah, even then you've got an injury and squatting will potentially cause some issues. So we're asking the right questions and we're saying, okay,
Mhm.
well, we can't do squats. Here's what we'll do instead. And so, yeah, your coach has to be curious and inquisitive and ask questions and let you ask questions. And that's how you learn. That's how you optimize your benefit from spending time with them. And that's their job. But for most of them, they're like, I'm going to give them the workouts. They're going to think they're doing the right thing. Maybe they'll lose a little bit of weight, but they're going to need me for the rest of their life. And I'm going to keep selling them hours.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things that's different with me online is I'm not selling hours. I'm selling outcomes. If you want to lose the weight and you're over 40, I'm your guy. If you want to get stronger and you're over 40, I'm your guy. And I'm not going to start by telling you what to do. I'm going to start by asking you questions so I can understand you better and help you do it right.
That should be your tagline, but you're not selling hours, you're selling outcomes. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
We have talked through so much, and I still have tons of questions, but we're going to switch gears. I'm going to say you're going to have to come back for part two.
Okay.
That's just what it is. But for today, we're going to switch gears real quick before I let you go, and we're going to talk about art in the form
Okay.
of tattoos.
The form of
In
tattoos.
the form of tattoos. So I'm wearing short sleeves today, so you can actually see some of my tattoos. I know you have a tattoo as well, and it ties into a little bit of your story that you shared and a little bit of your history and your transformation. I would love if you would share that with us.
Okay. So back when I was 39 and I told you everything about my life was just completely miserable with the exception of my career.
Mhm.
I was in a very, very toxic relationship. And there was, and it's my fault. I picked the wrong person. I stuck with the wrong person too long, however you want to label it.
Mhm.
Um, but I got to a point where I was like, I don't even want to be around this person. There's no intrinsic value to my life being around this person. And I hate to say that, it's my fault, maybe even more so than hers. So I will say that, that the fact that we were in a passionless
Mhm.
relationship was my fault as much as it was hers, if not more. And so I got up the guts to terminate that relationship because I realized I tried talking through it. I tried changing some of my own behaviors, and none of that was changing any of it. And I found I was most at peace when I was by myself, which is a terrible way to feel when you're living with someone. Um,
Right.
you know,
Right.
why don't you go somewhere for a while? But and again, it was on me, and I traveled a lot, and then she started traveling a lot, and it was just like, okay, this is not the direction that I'm going to go, and I don't see it getting better. And she kept leaning into the wanting to get married thing, and I'm like, well, you know, there's no passion when we're not married.
Mhm.
What makes you think getting married is going to change that? And I said it wouldn't, and so I decided I was going to terminate that relationship. And so I terminated that relationship and I thought, okay, what is the number one thing I would ever want from someone in my life if I ever decided I wanted to be in another long term relationship? Because at that point, I was thinking, I probably don't.
Mhm.
And so there was one word that kept coming up, and that was the word passion. And so I decided that I wanted a reminder that I would see every morning when I'm brushing my teeth and every night before I go to bed when I'm standing at the mirror with no shirt on. So the tattoo is on my chest,
Mhm.
on my heart, and it says have to have passion. Now, it's odd when you put things out to the universe how sometimes what you want most will come,
Mhm.
but you have to put it out there.
Right.
And so I got the tattoo, and it was not long after I got the tattoo that I met Tammy. And the passion was there, and the passion is there. And so, yes, I have a tattoo on my chest that says have to have passion.
I love that. And what a cool story and transformation. And so, it's a reminder of that as well. So, any other tattoos in the future, do you think?
I've thought about a few things, but at this point, I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. You know, um, you know, life changes. You've got
Right.
phases, and
Mhm.
so I'm not going to say no, and I'm not going to say definitely yes. Um, for me to do it is basically another form of commitment. It's saying, okay,
Mhm.
this is a permanent message, a permanent thing in my life. And as I said, if I'm putting something out into the universe, that I know would actually potentially come true. I want to make it the right thing. So,
Right.
I'll bide my time and make decisions on if there's going to be others based on what life throws at me
I feel like that's a
or
smart
serves up for me.
decision. Right, there you go. There you
Yeah.
go. Alan, where can people find you? So, if they want to talk to you about your coaching services or, want to know where to listen to your podcast, find your book, or if they want to come down to the bed and breakfast, where can they find you?
Okay. Well, I'll start with the podcast. You're listening to a podcast. You obviously know how to listen to a podcast, and because when I first started, not everybody did. You like podcasts because you're listening to a podcast, and so if you like podcasts, I encourage you to check mine out. It's 40 Plus Fitness. Of course, it's broadcast everywhere you listen to podcasts. So wherever you're listening to this one, I'm on there too. So like and subscribe to my podcast and catch some of that. You'll learn a lot more about me. You'll learn a lot about my style, and I have expert interviews, so you'll learn a lot about yourself too. I wrote the book, The Wellness Roadmap. It pretty much that's what it is. If you're over 40, you don't even have to be over 40, but I wrote it in that terms. But it's basically telling you how to like set your GPS and do the
Mhm.
things that are necessary to change yourself. And then I even have a section in there. Once you get where you're going, then what to do after. So there's 3 parts to the book. It's built to take you through the whole journey, at least the first phases of it. And
Mhm.
then my training, you can go to 40plusfitness.com. Again, that's 40plusfitness.com. I have all the links there. And so you can pretty much go from there to the podcast, to the book. And if you're interested in the training, you can find me there for sure. And then as far as Lula's, we opened up Lula. We bought Lula's right after COVID. We
Mhm.
stayed closed for a year to fix it all up. So she's beautiful. It's a Caribbean style house sitting across the street from the beach. And so you can go to lulabb.com. That's lulabb.com. And you can find pictures and everything for our rooms there and book yourself a stay.
Love it. Alan, you have been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
not only for sharing your own story, but also for giving out so many amazing tips and tricks and advice that people can use in their own health and fitness journey. I do hope that you'll come back for a part 2. So thank you so much.
I will. Absolutely. Thank you, Claudia.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and follow us on social media so you'll never miss what's going on. Remember, until next week, you are strong enough and you are worth it. Thank you for listening to the Strong Enough podcast. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform by searching Strong Enough. And on YouTube, we're on the Spear Talk channel. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Strong Enough Pod. If you have suggestions for an upcoming episode or a future guest, please reach out at strongenoughpod@gmail.com. Remember, you are worth it.